Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm here doing a story time, and I've got Vivian, who played this game for me in the background so that I could do the storytime voiceover. So this is part 12 now. There's already been 11 parts of this, so if you missed those, you might want to go back to them and watch them. So we are now in 2021, October, late September, early October. My family and I left to go on this Disney trip for the 50-year anniversary of the Magic Kingdom. We're really excited to be there. And I'm going to tell you right now, out of all the trips that we have taken to Disney before that and since then, I think that one was my absolute favorite. It felt like the best trip ever. It was still, it was 2021, so there's still a lot of COVID restrictions, so crowds were thinner. But Disney had always felt to my kids and I, ever since our second trip, because our first trip my husband went along, but ever since our second trip, it had kind of felt like an escape, because during that whole week, we didn't have Dad coming home yelling and screaming. We didn't have to deal with his tantrums. And then especially that year when he was so heavy into the addiction, we could breathe for the first time in a very long time. So to us, I think we all agree, everyone in my family, my kids and I at least, that was the best trip we've gone on. And so we had a absolutely fantastic time. My husband was occasionally texting me things about found that computer you were trying to hide from me. Now I've got the evidence I need. And I just kind of was like, sure, whatever, because the only computer that I had still laying around was this old touchscreen computer that I used to use to edit videos. And it had gone like crazy on me and stopped working. Like the touchscreen went all nuts, and it just, you couldn't really do anything on it. And the only evidence, quote unquote, that he'd be able to find would be pictures on there that I purposely put on there. And I was like, okay, cool. You have fun with that computer. And it's really funny. He told me I had him so locked out of it that he couldn't get into it anyway. It was literally just the normal, you turn on a computer, you put in the password. It was the same password him and I both used for everything. He knew what it was. He just was so far gone in his paranoia and his addiction that he couldn't understand it. Another thing with this particular drug is he would walk into a room and he would see the kids sitting there just looking up at their phones, and they would glance up at him, and his mind would twist it so he would think that they were laughing at, he would actually see their faces laughing at them. A psychologist actually told us that, because the minute my children, the minute I found out what was going on with my husband, with the drug use, I put my kids in therapy. So they were in therapy the whole time. They were telling the therapist what was going on. The therapist knew, that my husband was in an active addiction, and that we were, actively trying to figure out a way to get out of the situation we were in. And the psychologist actually was one who told us that the reason that he would get so mad at the kids and yell at them and ask them why they were making fun of him or why they were laughing at him is because his mind literally would look at their faces and see them laughing at him when they were just looking up and just looking at him. So anyway, he had these really bad paranoid delusions. So he insisted that I had locked him out of this computer, which at the time when I was, still in Disney, I was like, I don't know what he's talking about, or whatever. When I got home, like I said, it was just a simple, you just had to put in a password. It was not me locking him out of anything. It was just the computer the way it always was since we set it up. And there was nothing on it anyway, so it didn't really matter. But, so, I knew that he was probably tearing the house apart looking for things. But I just ignored it. I didn't tell the kids anything was going on. I just left it be so we could enjoy this trip. And we did. Like I said, it was amazing. It was one of the best trips that we've ever had. And then we had to go home. And so we did. We got home. My husband was actually the one who picked us up from the airport. And we got there and he was waiting. And he was clearly mad. So, he just kind of oh, that was the other thing. While we were gone, he ended up getting COVID. And so he spent half the time we were gone in bed, very sick. And so I was checking on him regularly because I was like, I don't know if, his addiction is going to make this worse for him, but he ended up being okay. I got a hold of his family, had them, check on him, actually made sure he was okay. But we were all the way in Florida. There was nothing we could do at that point. And, so we came home, and we got in the car, and we actually had not driven with him up to this point in quite a long time, probably over a year, because we didn't do anything together or go anywhere together. So he starts driving, and he is not driving well. He is erratic, and it got to the point where the kids were like freaked out. And so I asked him to pull off. I said, it seems like maybe you're still a little bit weak from being ill. Why don't you pull off pull off at the next exit, and we can switch spots. You can rest, and I'll drive the rest of the way home. I'm wide awake. We're good to go. So he said okay, and he pulled into the rest stop, or not rest stop. He pulled off of the expressway, and I got in the driver's seat, and I drove us the rest of the way home. And the kids felt much better about that. We were fine. We made it home. It was all good. So that night we just went to sleep. Everything was all right. We went to sleep. It was good. So then the next day we wake up, and my husband starts making comments about rice necklaces, which are these necklaces where it's in like this liquid, like whatever color liquid you choose, and they have little tiny grains of rice where they laser write whatever on it, names, a phrase, whatever you want. And he kept bringing them up. And finally I looked at him and I said, okay, Bob, did you find my rice necklace? Is that what you're trying to allude to? Because I had told him for years that I had this little necklace that I had made when I was 16 for my then boyfriend and I. I made each of us a rice necklace, and it had our names in it. And I was laughing about the fact that I loved it and I thought it was so cool. And here I am giving this to some teenage boy. Of course he's not going to wear that. But that I thought that it was such a cool concept that I actually kept the necklace, and I just had it in like a box somewhere. And so he must have came across it. And, finally I was like, did you find my rice necklace? Is this what you're trying to allude to? And he's like, yeah. And I called them all. They only did those in like 2017 or something like that, or I can't remember what year he said. And I was like, okay, first of all, why would I have gone to get a rice necklace with a boyfriend that I had when I was 16's name in it 5 years ago? And second of all, they very much did it in 1990, what year would it have been? 1997, when I got this done. Clearly, because I have one. And so finally he brings this box of mine down, and he says, here, I found your box of all your lover's stuff. And he throws it at me, and he takes the rice necklace, and he goes downstairs, and he breaks it with a sledgehammer. And I was like, what the heck, dude? That thing was cool, but whatever. Break the rice necklace. You're not going to break my heart. Like, it's a necklace from when I was 16 years old. So then he comes back upstairs, and he's yelling and screaming at me about this box from my lovers. And I open it up, and I look in it, and I just look at him, and I said, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, what's in that box? So I pull it out, start pulling things out, and I said, well, this is the christening bonnet for my oldest son. I set that down. I said, this is a christening candle from my oldest son. I set that down. I said, pull out the stack of cards. I said, these are cards from your mother, because my mother-in-law had passed away when my middle son was just barely a year old. So I kept all these cards from his grandmother because she was my mother-in-law. I loved her. And so I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I'm pulling out stuff, and it's all, I'm like, these are the little teddy bears from my cake from my baby shower for my oldest. And it just, I'm pulling all this stuff out and showing him how absurd he's being. But I'm going to have to end this here because it's getting up to 10 minutes, and my recordings are only 10 minutes each. So I have to stop each audio track at 10 minutes. So please subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Thank you so much for watching, and I will continue the story in the next video. So see you then. Bye.